So should we get started? Looks like we're can jump right in here.
So.
Yeah. So I think first off is welcome everyone to the RATS session, and we have some item of business immediately here to get volunteers. So I'm kind of flip through kind of the boilerplate stuff here, but just so everyone is aware what the contribution and participation requirements are. So that's been outlined here on this slide in the chair slides. This session is being recorded, so just be aware of that, and let's be polite and to each other and so forth. So first up is we need volunteers. We need the Jabber scribe, and we also need 2 minutes takers. Anyone wants to jump in? We kind of need to do this in order to meet our requirements for the meeting, so we can't really go forward until we get some volunteers. So
yeah, we actually can't get started until we get volunteers. And you guys can use the CodeMD. That's the live note-taking.
Even if you're a speaker, you can volunteer for the times when you're not speaking.
Thanks,
you.
Wayne.
I volunteered.
Yep. We could use a second one as well. Thanks, Michael. I think we have our 2 note takers.
Okay, did we get a Jabber scribe as well?
I'm not exactly sure if we need a Jabber scribe, to be honest with you.
Okay. So. All right. So I assume everybody is virtual. So
yeah.
If for some reason you can't join with MeetEcho, then chat with someone who can forward your comments if you have them. So with that, let's move on. So here's the rundown of our agenda. We have a pretty full agenda. So we're going to start off with the RATS architecture, followed by EAT, followed by Chara and RIV. After that, we have reference interaction models and DAA. Then we have concise reference integrity manifest, and that's followed up with attestation sets. And these are all sort of quick topics, so we're gonna have to pay attention to the clock, make sure we don't get behind. So with that, let's jump into RATS architecture. I thought I saw MCR on the list, so that's your topic. If you can jump in and drive that for us, that would be great.
So the short of it is that we haven't made any significant changes almost since the last IETF. We're waiting for the Shepherd, which I understand is underway. And we've been through the working group last call, all of those issues, 70 plus issues. Go see the slides last time. There's no change from that. About it. Any questions?
So there was some activity on the list having to do with, it might be considered some minor points. Has the team reviewed those, and do they have opinions on?
Well, so the next step is that we expect to get an AD review, and then IESG reviews. And the requests are to change a diagram, and we have not gotten together to discuss that as a group. I think that we can substitute the diagram at some point there when we reconvene. but I don't think it needs it. I personally don't wish to change the diagram. And we have not as a group come to any consensus at this point about that diagram change. I think that we will get comments from our AD and IESG, and we will have to restart our weekly design team meeting to deal with those issues. So the sooner we get those reviews, the sooner we'll deal with what other issues there are.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, hello, it's Lawrence. I had some comments on layered attestation, and that it could be clarified and maybe different. And there was some, at least one other person on that. It's not a critical issue for me, but I just, maybe you could comment on how you see that fitting into work.
I feel like we've changed the document about 12 times in that area. And I think that the place where we are at is a compromise between different interests on how to clarify this. So I'm not enthusiastic about any further changes, and I didn't see any suggested text there. So I'd be happy to engage with that at the time, but at this point, I'd just like the document to get to the next step of review, and I'm not sure that these changes are critical. I think that at this point, I mean, it's an architecture, it's not a design specification, and so we don't have to cover every single possibility, but rather we have to make sure that everything is clearly fits in there. In other words, we're allowed to be a little bit wrong about some minor bits, as long as we're not wrong about major bits. We don't forbid people from doing something, but we don't have to necessarily include every option that people can think of. So that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I do want to hear all of the potential issues and then help to see if we can progress this.
Yeah, this is Lawrence Dunblade. My main comment is it's really hard to understand from the brevity of the text what layered attestation is, what the core concept is, and so it's just really hard to understand it. It's not a matter of like detail. It's just that without a lot of TCG background, which some people don't have, at least that's what it seems to me. It's really hard to understand. I mean,
I have none.
hours.
I have no TCG background.
Let me finish.
I avoided reading documents. Sorry. I would be interested in additional text, but what I'm trying to say is that I don't, this is not intended to be a tutorial on it. I think it's reasonable to say to people, if you really, really need to know more about this part, then go read this part. But we're trying to get the overall architecture here, not a design spec. And that's where the problem I'm having is that people are saying, well, what about this? What about this? I said, well, that sounds great. It fits in the architecture. We didn't say you couldn't do that.
Okay, so as the shepherd, I'd like to figure out how we can wrap this up. So I will pay.
I feel like I'm sorry, I was interrupted.
Oh, can I just offer this quickly? I will pay close attention to this on the list, and I would like to see a suggestion of text and an area where this is addressing, and I would like to figure out if we can come to this quickly. So I will help with that process as much as possible. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm not asking for a detailed design. I'm not asking for specifics here or of like, I don't think what I'm asking for is a tutorial. I'm just saying for me, it took me weeks and a lot of writing and a lot of reading to understand what was there in layered attestation and have my understanding confirmed. So I think there's a pretty big gap between, Michael, what you're saying. You're saying like what the text is there is pretty good. I'm saying for an architecture document, I'm saying it's not understandable for me and maybe some others from an architecture document point of view. Not tutorial, not details, not specific designs, not all that stuff. So okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Hank, on the queue.
I heard you, and I will work with all of you.
Hank's on the
Yeah.
queue.
Yeah, so hi, this is Hank. So if we are addressing this via proposals, I think it's very important to have a targeted addition that might have some overlap with additional text where it's molding into the interfaces of existing text. But we can't substitute carefully consensus-based text whole section-wise. That we can't create consensus about. That was the reason why the last effort stalled to improve this. So if we are going with a proposal-based approach here, it has to be targeted additional text, I think, that interfaces into the existing one.
Okay, so I think on the chat window, people are suggesting that we deal with it in the context of the AD review. So does that make sense? Should we do that?
I was on mute. I think we should just let it continue and go to AD review.
Okay. All right, so next topic. So this is EAT status, which is Lawrence, you're up.
Yeah. Hello. Next slide. So I'm going to do, for this few minutes, I'm just going to do the draft status update. We have longer discussions on Thursday for the others. So here's my kind of overview of the planned contents of an EAT, the claims. This is adjusted from last IETF, and that I added the bottom right corner, which is some claims about certifications, like common criteria certifications achieved by the attestation targets, and some claims that describe the results of a software measurement, like did the reference values actually complete. So those are particularly attestation results oriented claims that go to the relying party that I've added. That's the main difference from this, because I think that's an important thing, and I'll have more discussion on Thursday. Next slide. So a fair bit of progress since 110. You can see the blue arrows are where things are progressed, and I won't go into too much detail on that, just to note that there's definitely been some stuff progressed. That there's just been one draft since IETF 110, and most of those changes are in that, although the lighter blue ones are still in GitHub, not actually in a published draft yet. And as you can see by the green bars, a lot of them I think are close to ready for last call, or some are ready for last call, and some are definitely closer.
4 bars is ready, and fewer
Yep.
than 4 is not ready.
Yes. Yeah, the little key is up in the upper right there. So 4 bars is ready for last call. No open issues as far as I know. Nothing in GitHub, and so. Next slide. So in addition to just working on specific claims, there's some other work that, document structure work that needs to be dealt with. Particularly, it has to adapt to the RATS architecture, using the terms of tester, verifier, and stuff like that. And there's some text that needs to be removed. That was the same as last presentation. But so there's been no progress on that, but it's getting close to the top of the list. I think we need some more examples, and there's a question of whether we want to include a verification procedure. Next. Here's the list of changes that since IETF 110. So the semi-permanent UEID was added. And more discussion on it on Thursday. An appendix comparing EAT and IDEV-ID was added, a discussion on that on Thursday. I added a section on use of evidence and attestation results. More discussion on that on Thursday. There's a key ID and endorsements section that was discussed maybe 2 meetings ago. So that text has all been added, and that resulted also in the removal of the origination claim. I've added claims for manifests and software evidence. Those were discussed at 110. They're pretty straightforward ways to include COSWID and suit manifests and COMID and any other kind of manifests or measurement reporting mechanisms. And then just some basic mechanical stuff was missing string labels for JSON for the enumerated types. I made the EAN 13 hardware versions, folded them into the COSWID version scheme, and now it just runs on the COSWID version scheme. Then there was a lot of GitHub issues that were closed just based on looking through them, and minor changes to the text, and the justifications for their closure is all in GitHub. I believe that's it. Although I think Gary, we were trying to. Gary made some comments offline here, and we're trying to get towards last call. So I'll let Gary. If you want to talk, Gary, you can talk about that.
Yeah. So I've. Thank you, Lawrence. I've submitted a deck. I don't think it's really fair for me to try to shoehorn time into this meeting. So I'm just hoping the chairs will just include it in the record. And it actually it goes through on the list of open issues currently in the GitHub repo. And it's my view on what is essentially last call blocking. And there are several issues remaining that I do believe are last call blocking. My request to the chairs and to the working group is to set a deadline. I think privately I've communicated to the chairs that August 15th seems to be reasonable for opening new issues with respect to the spec that group members think would be required before the spec can be proceed to last call. I would request that if new issues are going to be opened, that they be focused primarily on what I call spec fixes rather than enhancements, because we should note that EAT has a ability to has defined the capability for profiles, for defining profiles and designating profiles with a purpose-specific claim. So, I know a lot of people have different views on how EAT can be extended in different areas as far as attestation is concerned, but I think it was not meant for EAT to cover every special use case. I'd also mention that several standards bodies have now have essentially normative references to EAT, and therefore it is in the interest for I think all involved to ensure that the spec is stable. But I don't think, but it's going to be very difficult to set up some of the things that are ongoing within the other standards organizations if the spec is continually evolving. So I'll give an example. I'm the co-chair of the FIDO Alliance, Fast Identity Online Alliance IoT Working Group. We've recently defined a secure onboarding spec, FIDO device onboard. It's actually available on the Alliance's website. I've introduced it in this form before. And we would like to set up a certification program based on a stable EAT spec. And I believe Global Platform has actually addressed this. In fact, even if you look at some certification programs like ARM PSA certified, there are references to the EAT compliance there as a valid attestation form. So I think that you're seeing a lot of industry interest, but at the same time, it's basically not. We aren't seeing a lot of new issues being filed beyond just the editors themselves and a couple of other very helpful and interested parties. But yeah, so we think that there is a path to last call, and we'd like to see this move forward. Turn it over to the chair.
Taylor,
I have any additional guidance. Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Dave Taylor.
Question is, and it's okay if we need to defer the question until Thursday, but I'll ask the question now because it relates to the slide that Lawrence had up that had the different green bars, and was it, two bars or 3 bars or 4 bars or whatever. And the question is, Gary, you mentioned that you can have different documents that have different things and extensions in the future. The editor is thinking that there's any reason to take the current one and split it into things that are ready for last call versus things that aren't, or is the intent to hold it until the last of those bars makes it?
I think we would like to see the last of those bars make it, but I think but I think that would also, I'd be interested to hear what we think would actually be better split off as a profile that's building on top of an each spec. Like I said, I've classified, all I can go by is the open issues. So I mean,
I guess my suggestion is to just have everybody think about this, and let's come back to this at the open mic time at the end of Thursday.
Fine.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Well, I have one more comment. It was that my hope for the set of claims would be a really solid core set of useful claims that you could build some basic attestations on, and that they were really clear and valuable as across a broad set of use cases. That's what I've been aiming for, and in my kind of list of claims I'm targeting. That's the objective there.
So is it the case that people are not providing feedback or comments or participating on the GitHub because they're happy with everything that's there and they want it to move forward? Or are there people out there that are thinking, hey, I need to read this again and comment on it?
I guess this is Dave. Since there was 2 of us that were asking what the GitHub link is, I would take it as people have been following the list and didn't know what the GitHub link was necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, very very little activity on GitHub besides what I'm doing. I'm just chunking it away at it myself here. I mean, I'm doing most of the writing and most of the issue management and most of the issue filing.
All right. So let's take the suggestion. We have some open mic time actually, today and Thursday, so we can, if people want to go revisit the GitHub sort of during the week and come back Thursday, that would be great to bring this topic up again. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next topic, which is Chara and RIV. This is Hank Burkholz and Guy Frederico. So, Hank, are you up first?
Yeah, I think so. It could have been the other way around, but we can do it this way. Okay. Yeah, this is about Chara. This is a short recap. Network devices were the starting base for this. This is a Yang module for challenge response-based evidence exchange using TPMs. Next slide, please. There's only one slide. That's the document status. This will happen again. So this ID is bundled a little bit with the RATS architecture and the RIV due to normative references to both documents, expecting them to clear. We removed that dependency with the interaction models ID by downreffing into informative at the moment, so that doesn't become a blocker, or that doesn't remain a blocker actually. That was suggested by the chairs, and I'm absolutely fine with this. The authors and the editors agree, and I think there was no opposition. We have a lot of outdated art, ASCII art in our ID. That's weird XML to RFC issue from the XML. Carsten, I don't know how he did it, found some free cycles to build some hotfixing into cram down RFC here. mixed successes. Some tree diagrams are now looking better, some diagrams don't. That's but not a blocker, I think, because it is an tool problem at the moment. At the very worst, it's an RFC ed problem. So so that's fine from the editor's point of view. Yang Doctor's comments also seem to be all addressed. I think what we are waiting for is the final yes, this is it. The Yang Doctor review, I think, is still without conclusion. So waiting for that, or maybe having missed that and waiting in vain, the next step could be after write up the AD review on ISG, but that's, well, my question here at the end. Next steps? I think we addressed everything we can do.
So if it's, you know, waiting for somebody to do something, you know, is it appropriate to go talk to the Yang doctors and ask them what's holding it up?
Yeah, so a tiny ping would be in order, I think. Eric typically does that occasionally, but I think we sent everything out, and now we are basically waiting for a response.
In previous meetings, we had some conversation about combining this, or moving this forward jointly with the RIV.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
Ned, let me speak to this because I am close to the Shepherd. I mean, I'm almost done with the Shepherd write-up. So I've been conversing with the authors. So the RIV is ready to go. I'm just waiting on the Chara. There were a couple of things that I had asked the authors to do to address vis-a-vis the ID nits. With respect to the Yang doctors, I need help with the tooling because I need to verify at least the lint passes. And I can reach out because as far as I could see, the authors did address Mahesh's comments, but you're right, Hank, I should reach out and make sure he gives us the thumbs up because it's showing up. If you look at the document tracker, the Yang comments still are showing the errors that I need to verify.
Funnily, we are using a newer version of Yang lint for months, and that doesn't show these errors. So it's yeah. ID nits also is a little bit curious at some points, to be honest. So maybe that's actually an RFC issue in the end. But I think the really important thing is the thumbs up from Yang doctors to move along. I think that's the actual thing we should look out for. The other items, yeah. Again, I can't reproduce them. My Yang lint has no problems with it, but it's actually younger.
Okay, but in either case, I need to verify with Mahesh, the Yang doctor who did the review, to make sure he's satisfied. I think that's the last thing, and then we'll be ready to push the two drafts forward together.
Thanks.
Okay, so with that, sounds like a good segue to the next topic, which is the RIV draft.
Well, while we're transitioning, can I do a quick, so I do want to thank Wei. I'm looking at the Cody ND, and I've been trying to insert some things, but in this last dialogue, I didn't enter anything. Michael, are you able to take notes? Because I'm not seeing anything. Michael Richardson, are you there?
I'm there. Sorry, I was distracted. And I think I closed the wrong window tab. Oh, no, maybe that's it. No, that's not it. No, I got.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we have the two people taking notes. So thanks. Sorry for the disruption.
Hi, Nancy. It's Guy.
Hi, Guy. Go ahead.
So I will just very quickly go through this material just as a refresher for where we're at. And I think there's only one action at the end, which is to forward it. So next, please. as a reminder that what we're trying to do is standardize the way to use the TPM to do remote attestation to find out what's running on your router. Next. This was the back and forth diagram for how attestation works in this case. A lot of this is defined by both the architecture and also by the way TPMs are designed and have to be used. Next, please. When we say attestation in this context, we're looking to validate the code, credentials, and configuration on the device. That is any security sensitive files plus the credentials used for the operation of the device. And of course, the point of this is to ensure the infrastructure is secure so that the higher level security mechanisms can be trusted. Next. This is Eric's chart from a while ago showing how all of these RATS pieces fit together with RIV. So there's work on both ends. The architecture feeds into it, and then this in turn feeds into features like the trustworthy path routing material. Next.
Well,
so I think the next step, as far as I know, is simply to forward the thing to the next stage of review. Nancy ran the NIT checker on it and found a couple more nits that I'd missed. In the interim, of course, some of the references are out of date by a version, which I've corrected, and one of the drafts has changed name, so I will correct that. With that, I think that's all we know about. Oh, and the NIT checker is complaining about one line which has an ASCII character, a non-ASCII character that I can't find, but keep looking at that. The version, there's a version which I can check in under number 8. More or less immediately. I might spend a few more minutes trying to find the non-ASCII character, but other than that, I think we're set. And with that, I can ask if any of the chairs know of anything else that we're missing before we go. Nancy, I think you said you had what you needed.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to do for the RIV. It's just getting rid of the errors on the IDNet errors.
Yeah.
And same for Tara, but Tara has the additional confirmation from Mahesh. So, but I think we'll be ready.
Okay.
So let me know when. Well, I'll see it when you post.
Yeah.
And I'll do the last run and.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the check-in window by a day, and it looks like it's open again now. So I'll finish.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right. So next up, we have reference interaction models and DAA. Back to Hank.
Thanks, Ned. Hi, this is Hank again. Yeah, the reference interaction models ID progress. Next slide, please. We had one actual issue left that was addressed recently. This was an oversight on my part, and I'm sorry, so I just addressed that. Today, quantity relationship was the wrong way around. So in the definition of authentication secret, it was basically broken. I phrased it basically in the inverse, and now it's correct. I think that issue, I think it was caught by Wei, is now addressed. There was a additional PR issued by one of my colleagues that brought a lot of new topics into the game. And after some vetting, the editors agreed that basically this is out of scope for now, not for now, for this document actually, because it would alter or extend, not even profile, but extend the architectural roles and some of the semantics, and also conflicted with some of the terminology. So that PR we abandoned. It will not go into further consideration for this document here, which leaves this document issue free at the moment. And the PR is not closed, so everybody can have a look at it, but it's basically abandoned. So the proposal here is that we can now go to for thorough vetting of the content and find out if this is ready for a working group last call, or find that out due to or via a working group last call. And that would be the editor's proposal. But that's just that, a humble request to move this on.
Okay. Any other discussion? So do we want to do a last call vote on this one right now?
So I would not complain, but it's an in-room consensus.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You're only talking about the reference. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ned, we need to ask how many people have read this current version, reviewed it, because we need to make sure that enough participants have read it.
So hands up, who's read it?
So I'm not raising my hand here.
It
is
an
amazing
show of hands things.
Stop putting the list for the list. What was it called?
Okay, so
but
yeah,
right.
So what do we?
So we're looking at who's read it, who hasn't. So we've got 2 people raising their hand, 5 haven't, 7 participants total. So just 2 people that have read it. Three.
Well, unlike the poll phrasing, your verbal question was the current version, which is different from how the poll question is listed.
How about a recent revision, as in the most recent, or 1 or 2 revisions prior than that? So 4.
Wow.
So the
4. Yeah, go ahead.
So the only question is, what is an early review here, and do we want to maybe ping some directorates explicitly? If you have read the last version, this version really was editorial. So we if you look at the diff, it's minor. So but again, that's fine. Just whatever produces reviews and moves us along is fine. Working group last call is just one of the tools. You can do others as long as it is prodded.
Ned.
Yeah.
Why don't you start a new poll and just raise the question. Raise your hand if you believe the interaction models draft is ready for working group last call.
My God. We're having a poll to find out whether we should have a poll.
No.
We're using the tools at our disposal. Okay.
And Hannes seems to be right.
So we got, what's Hannes?
Yeah, that's
Hannes
true.
said, Hannes said
Yeah.
you had to ask the 4 people who read it.
That's fair. Well, okay, and now we have more than the 4 people.
Yeah, it's flipped around now.
Well, what we can do is just issue the working group last call on this one and see the feedback we get. Because Hannes is right. This doesn't make sense. Oh, Roman? You're in the queue?
I am. So I just wanted to comment. We can certainly proceed with exactly what you just said, kind of, Nancy. Let's just make sure that we get positive feedback, even if there is no feedback, with numbers a little higher than this. So if folks can just say, I read it, I have no comments, I endorse it proceeding, that would be a big help to everyone.
Right. Dave, you're in the queue?
Yeah, I got in to explain why I think the numbers do make sense, just to respond to Hannes. And I put this in the chat, but I just wanted to unlock here that, in my opinion, if the chairs and the authors do not know of any open issues, then I don't have any reason for anything that shouldn't go to working group last call, whether I've read it or not. Now, in this case, I have read a much earlier version, right? There's nothing to say that you can't do multiple working groups last calls. I think that's completely up to the chairs. If the chairs want to delay it, you can. If you want to start a working group last call, the first of the reviews, you can. And so I raised my hand as a no for the first one because it's been a year since I read it. And I did raise my hand for this one because if you don't know of any open issues, I read one a year ago. And if you don't know of any open issues, then that's a good reason to do a working group last call.
Thanks, Dave. Okay. Well, I think we've been deciding.
Okay. All right. So, do we want to do a working group last call then? I think what Dave's.
Yes, that's what we said we would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we will take a note. This will move the reference interaction models to working group last call.
Cool, thanks.
Next topic.
Yeah, so any issues that come up, we will find, I assume. So at that point.
Yeah.
Next topic, yeah, is the direct anonymous attestation item that was ripped out of the reference interaction model ID and became its own thing. So next slide, please. This is not adopted, it's a related ID. So now we are going into the related ID section of the session. And there was a tremendous amount for 0.00, I think, and pre-adoption wise, a lot of good feedback. So there's attributed some thanks here. Thanks a lot. The people from the Surrey University are not here right now because they were like, okay, and we are not joining midnight for 20 minutes. So it's understandable. So the authors, so to speak, are channeled, are funneled through me here right now. Latest revision introduced a content for the privacy and security consideration section, as has been rightly so pointed out in the reviews for pre-adoption. And there was no real pushback. There was just a lot of well, good feedback, and so that's where at the moment. Also, I hope, Dave, that was okay to put on the slide. Dave agreed if you're not methodically dissecting every sentence like with the architecture document, to join the author's team, which is very welcome, I think. We are really happy to have a real-world IETFler here, so to speak. that helps us accomplishing our goals. And that would be the next goal here. That's near target is the request for an adoption. To be honest, some of it was adopted already. So by ripping it out, it became unadopted. And then we introduced the diagrams, we enriched it. So a new adoption call is, of course, in order. And as I can see it, there might be interest in this. So I'm relatively cautiously optimistic that a working group adoption call would be in order also.
Well, so Hank, I did actually issue an adoption call, and I will fall on the sword. I was remiss. We only received one comment from Guy, and that was it.
Okay, so I got comments about the content, maybe that it was for the call, from I'm relatively sorry, Hannes and Thomas. Wait in. So again, who the people here? So, but that might have been before the adoption call. I don't know. Maybe I missed the call, to be honest.
Okay. Well, the call for adoption was done in late May, first week of July, and in full disclosure, Thomas Fossati did give you some feedback as well as Guy.
Yeah.
So so this is typically again where I would ask the question whether people have read it, because you I would say 80 to 90% of the content was from the content that was in the information interaction model. Sorry, some of it was new, but again, this is to say we need to find out how many people have read it before we can ask the question for adoption. I don't know why my Meet Echo, hopefully you guys can hear me, but I keep getting these little flashes of low bandwidth.
So far, so good on my end, Nancy.
Thanks.
Yeah, sounds fine to me.
Okay.
So I asked the question to raise hands if you've read the DA draft.
Yeah, Ned, if you can do the hand thing again.
Oh, Nancy, I misread your email. I thought you wanted early reviews before you call issue the call. So that's how I read your email.
True.
I just simply,
I'm just asking, if you've read it. I'm just asking if you've read it.
Okay.
Yeah. We've actually we've got a fair number. We've got 6 people who have read it.
Again, I'm not voting on this.
Okay, and it seems like Dave Thaler is, I don't know if he raised his hand officially, but on the chat,
Yeah,
he's for it.
Oh, he's not participating in the poll.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's quite a few.
Let's ask the 6 people, and then we can confirm on the mail, right?
Makes sense.
So
yeah, go ahead.
I'm just tempted to just put it in the interest of time. How are we doing on time?
We're a little behind, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Ned, let's just take it to the mail since we've got 6 people that reviewed it, and I can put out the call for adoption for this.
Okay. All right. So let's keep moving. So the next topic is concise reference integrity manifest. This is Hank.
Yeah, so yeah, this is Hank. I drew the short straw here. This is difficult to present in a short time. So yeah, please, next slide to the title. This is the presentation of a 00 working group related ID about RIMs. You might have heard the term RIMs before. Reference integrity manifest also might sound familiar. We have reference values in the architecture that's closely related to that. You can see the authors listed here. Next slide, please. So quick recap, that's the architecture diagram, a little bit rearranged, and you can see the verifier is kind of hub-ish in the middle of all of this. Next slide, please. in order to function, that verifier needs a description of the attester that is supplied to the verifier in order to appraise evidence from that attester and to assess with its own policies, of course, if that verifier really functions. So one of the things that I've been already mentioning is reference values, but more importantly, this requires an information model / data model here. Without that, the tooling around verifiers is basically arbitrary. And so, yeah, that's our focus for standardization here in support of the supply chain actors. Next slide, please. I'm running a little bit through the slides because we don't have so much time. So yeah, measurements, so the reference values, of course, if you have something in evidence that can be compared to that. Also, endorsements, there are two primary things you could think about. Either it's evidence that the attester neither a target environment nor a testing environment can create ever. A very arbitrary example is the color of the device. It doesn't know that, how the user painted it. So it has to be endorsed from the outside. That's an endorsed value. That's not very critical. Sometimes you have this testing environment in there. These also cannot produce evidence or do not produce evidence about themselves. It's against the principle. So there's also these testing environments, at least the very initial ones, have to be endorsed from the outside. CORIM addresses both of these domains. So there is simple layouts where you have one testing environment for a target environment, and that's your device. But then you can have relatively complex devices with multiple testing environments and multiple targeted layered attestation. As Lawrence already pointed out, that's not always easy to understand. Could be, for example, expressed to submodules from EAT, and there needs to be the pattern, the intended state to compare with. And that's what this reference integrity manifest is about. And the probably is already spoiling the surprise, is for concise, yeah, and that means it's all phrased in CBOR. Next slide, please. So yeah, that's basically a summary of what I just said. Endorser and reference provider conceptual messages in one. Yeah, thank you. Just go to the next slide. That's fine. So in the high-level design, we actually realized that we tinkered with formal, with static structures that would allow for expressing what we need, and then the permutation of combinations of environments and intents became so complex that statical designing this became a burden to the design. And so we changed at some point to actual graph data models. That these are RDF-like, basically a property graph, directed one. So you have these triples. You might know about this. So Hank is a human. That's a triple of subject, predicate, and object. And this concept can be relatively easy without using JSON LD or its not yet existing variant that is CBOR LD be implemented in a manifest format. And to do that, we have already a structure that can do this hierarchical representation of software components. That's co-SWID. What we are missing here was the co-MID, the concise module identifier that can represent the hardware tree of the device that is the attester. And that is basically also, for example, representing these layers and layered attestation. And so the co-MID is part of this ID. And the co-RIM is effectively the bundle mechanism around all of that. Next slide, please. I think I already barged a little bit ahead, content-wise. So these so-called triples, these expressions, they associate, of course, and that's a very obvious thing. You measure something as claims, collect them, put them into evidence, send them to the verifier, and reference value, compare them, first item. Then, as I highlighted, same thing can go with the attesting or target environment with endorsement. Again, the hardware root of sus, for example, TAE quality, that's isolation, confidential, is an endorsement of the testing environment, can go into this RIM. And then you have to associate these pieces of evidence relatively reliably with with the reference measurements or with the endorsements, and that is done via cryptographic identities. Luckily, testing environments have these, and so the CORIM or commit especially can express the complement to that, so you can associate pieces of evidence with these reference manifests that you have in store as a verifier. So all of this is basically a bundle that we can provide. Next slide, please. And these are now 3 examples. Again, as Hank is a human, a target environment has reference values for explicit expression here. The example goes with a class of devices, and these have certain reference values you have to expect. So one of these can match, multiples of these can match. That's a policy. That's not what we're doing. We provide the allowed values for that class ID. And so that is something that is done in our scope policy expression, therefore explicitly is not in the intended scope of the CORIM. Although pointers to sets of sources for policies might become in scope, we are not not absolutely certain about that yet. Next slide, please. I think that example is also relatively simple. It's the endorsement that I already explained. Next slide, please. Is the that's a little bit more complicated, to be honest. On the right side button, you see a key. We use existing structures. We do not invent new ones to bind cryptographic identity statements to our reference or endorsement values. And these are cozy key sets. That's pretty well understood. And if you're using public keys that are associated with private keys from the testing environment, it becomes relatively quickly obvious how this works. So these crypto identity statements help you to identify, does this reference belong to a explicit one instance thing in the world? Does it extend to a class of devices? Both of these concepts can be expressed in our layout today with the 00 ID here. Next slide,
Hank,
please.
we're kind of 2 minutes into Kathleen's time.
Yeah, I started with 8
we
minutes minus, so I'm really running here.
I know.
Just go ahead. We have 2 slides, and then I think we are done. Now we can skip this one. The composition is basically all next steps. That's nice to know, but this is all possible. That's also nice to know. Next slide is interesting again, I think. No, 1 slide to go still. We are skipping this one. 1 slide to go. We are skipping this one. Yeah, so this is it. So commits and co-splits are the grouping mechanisms for our statements. These are wrapping the claims, so to speak, the reference claims, and also these have a evolution. So they can be outdated. Software can be new versions. They can be patched, can be superseded. Also, hardware modules. There can be a lot of ranges for hardware modules in a class of devices, because you sell a range of price range, for example. This comes in handy to allow one commit to express all this complete range, for example. So these groupings criteria are, of course, application specific, and they are supply chain specific. And but they can be very suitable for firmware updates with suite, for example. So there's some overlap there. And then next slide, please. Yeah, and the CORIM is basically the envelope, adding some metadata that the supply chain actor is in charge of creating that. And so that is effectively what this is all about. It is a standardized exchange method that enables supply chain actors or OEMs or basically all of these people that are in the upper bureaucracy creating endorsements and reference values here. And yeah, so it's a very quick summary run through. I'm sorry for the lack of time. I ran into this with 8 minus, and I'm coming out with this 4 minus. So Kathleen, you have 4 minutes more than before. It's up to you. I'm sorry, I can't do this any faster.
I think we're I think we're not going to get time for the last topic.
I'm not sure about that math though, Hank. So I'll go very quickly here. I'd just like to get more comments on the draft. I did receive a few. I will iterate on it very soon. There was agreement that it could move to a working group document. So hopefully when that next revision comes out, it will come out with the working group name on it. So I will do that within the next couple of weeks. So if anyone has additional feedback, I know I received feedback from 3 people that need to be addressed at the moment. So more is appreciated. Thank you. Lots of time back.
Sorry, Kathleen, I'm so sorry.
Only one, Hank.
Okay, so we're kind of right at 3, at the 3:30 at the half hour. So what's kind of the final parting statement you want to make?
Who are you directing that to?
I think I thought I was directing it to Hank, but there's a bunch more slides here that we didn't get through.
Yeah, no, we can't go. So this is
Okay.
all CBOR CDDL. It's using CoSwit. It adds the complement of COMA to it, gives the whole bundle back, and it's basically for cloud, big, global things, and your IoT device that controls your light switch dimmer.
Right.
You know, so it's scalable and it's in CBOR.
So you're looking for interest, basically, at the end of the day.
Yeah, have a look at this. We will publish a lot of updates in the near future. There's a lot in this for the composition here, but again, we are over time, and also maybe I might have some time left, wishful thinking, on Thursday, and we can pick that up, especially Kathleen's topic. I think we should readdress here.
Okay. All right. So with that, just a reminder, we meet again on Thursday. We'll have 2 sessions, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, you took over, Hank.
How did I do this? I'm the emergency fallback. So, but I
don't know.
quorum was less than 15 minutes, right? I really pushed through this.
No, you did great. No, it all snowballed from the beginning, Hank. No worries. So.
I mean,
right, I'm
nobody's
gonna
really.
drop off.
Yeah, drop off. We will see us later. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.